The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And joining me in the studio this morning, Sheriff Allard. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It always is a beautiful day.
Yes, it is.
How are the roads? Not too bad.
They're a little greasy.
Are they? Yeah. It's too early to have anything done yet.
Yeah.
We have so much to talk about. We can talk about the national, local level. We got some questions from viewers. So let's start with that. How's that?
Sure. That sounds good.
Being that we live in the heart of the Finger Lakes, could you have Mr. Allard speak on the new law of all boaters of all ages needing the Safe Boaters course as of January 1st, 2025? And thank you.
Yes. It was phased in over a number of years. Each year, the age, how old you had to be to not need it went up.
Okay.
Until this January, where it's everybody that's operating, anyone that operates a motorized vessel on a navigable waterway has to have their boater safety certificate.
Oh, wow.
And so what we've been doing is since last June, every month we've had a free boater safety course at the sheriff's office, and we'll continue that through this summer to try and get as many. We could only do 30 at a time. That's one of the prerequisites for the course. So we've been knocking out as many of those folks that we can, trying to make sure that we get as many of our residents that are boaters that don't have it through it. I went through it in September. I've been boating since I was old enough to get in the water.
Isn't that funny?
And I still learned a few things.
Oh, of course.
It was worthwhile, and I'm glad I did it. I did it through our office, through our folks that teach it, and they do a phenomenal job. And you can also do it online. If you do it online, though, through the state, through Parks and Rec, through their website, you can do it, but you have to pay for that one.
Oh, okay. Oh, so yours is absolutely free. How many people are going to wait till like May? you know, because the weather's going to change and everybody's going to be like, oh, my goodness. Because I had not heard about this. So no one's grandfathered in.
No.
Everybody has to take this
If you have Coast Guard certification or Power Squadron certification, you're good to go. And you can look that up on the New York State Parks and Rec. Parks and Recreation and Historic Restoration website.
Rolls right off the tongue.
It does.
All right. We got a lot of other things to talk about, but thank you to the viewer who sent that in. Send your questions in at any time.
That's a good question.
I thought we could talk, this is at the national level, but I would love to hear your opinion on it, and that's the border. Because everything since Trump, can you imagine Trump's only been in office for a week?
I know.
It seems like a year. It's been nonstop. You forgot that even on the weekend, there's a new cycle now with Trump.
So this is very topical because we just had our state sheriff's conference last week, and we had folks from the northern border come visit us because here in New York State, that's a concern. And what we found out is even more concerning. In 2024, so there's a section of the border that's just east of Ontario Lake that goes New York into Vermont. As you know, just a week ago, a Border Patrol officer was killed in Vermont, performing his duty in the line of duty. And some of his coworkers came and presented to us.
Oh, wow.
They saw last year, they saw a 1,000% increase in illegal border crossings on that section of the northern border compared to 2023. This isn't even compared to 10 years. This is in 1 year, it increased by 1,000%. They had more known and suspected terrorists crossing illegally on the northern border last year than on the southern border.
That's scary. Is it because the focus has always been on the southern border?
It is, and the resources are on the southern border. A lot of our northern border looks like out here.
Yeah, exactly.
You drive up, there might be a gate, you drive around the gate, and you keep going. It's literally that easy.
Wow.
So there's a big push to get additional resources up there and try to close that down, close down that loophole.
Well, I know Congressman Langworthy was bringing this up quite some time ago because I don't think it was on anybody's radar. Even with the story you mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago now, I guess it was last week, it was almost shocking to hear Vermont. Because, again, you think of Arizona, Texas.
And the more shocking thing is that the folks that are crossing the border in Vermont and New York are over 75% male, single males, military age, the majority from China, India, and Afghanistan.
Wow.
So they're not coming here for good reasons.
No. And that's why, what do you think when you watch the news coverage of the deportations and the crackdown? It seems to be going pretty smooth.
It does. And, they've been ramping this up and planning it for a while. And they're utilizing all their partners, which again brings us to New York,
Right.
and our state governments and our attorney generals decision to not allow us to cooperate with our federal
It
partners.
doesn't make any sense.
So I can be, if I share motor vehicle information from the Department of Motor Vehicles with ICE, I can be charged with a felony in New York State.
That doesn't even make sense.
How ridiculous is that?
At a time when we always talk about cooperation, especially remember after 9/11, that was always the big thing.
Yes.
We have to have cooperation between
Yes.
every agency.
Unilateral communication.
Yep. Shared services is a big issue, and they're telling you specifically that you cannot share that information.
Yes, that if I do, I can be charged with a felony by
Felony.
Letitia James.
That is,
Yes.
and she would do it too.
It's called, she would. She'd love to do it, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It's called the Green Light Law, which I had to sign and verify under penalty of perjury that I would not share DM. So these guys are having people come over the border trying to stop the vehicles, yet if it's a New York plate, they can't find out who owns it. They can't find out if it's suspended. They can't find out if it's stolen.
Right.
Nothing.
It doesn't even make sense. I mean, who comes up with this? Is Albany, isn't it? I
Yes.
mean, they come up with decisions like this that are
Well, it's New
detrimental.
York City.
Well, New York City, and they do it for some type of virtue signal, I guess. But there seems to be a lot of pushback, and we're going to talk about the state in the budget. But with public safety, there seems to be a lot of pushback now, and I think that's why Richie Torres, Mr. Defund the Police, is now all of a sudden Mr. Rah Rah Police,
Right,
because he wants to run against.
He's our hero now.
Yeah, right. He wants to run against Hochul on the Democratic ticket. But I think they're starting to wake up. That doesn't mean they're not going to do anything. I don't think.
Well, and again, if you look at the returns from the last presidential election, the shift,
Yeah, Trump made a huge
significant,
inroad.
significant.
Well, because I know we've talked about it. They can keep. I hate this term, gaslighting us, but telling us everything's safe. But everybody's been affected one way.
Yeah,
It's just like bail reform.
Yeah.
We know it's not working.
So again, all bail reform has done is delay the process and create a whole class of victims unnecessarily.
Yeah.
It's made us innately less safe.
But the governor acts like she's Mrs. Public Safety now, and no one talks about the bail reform. That's completely ignored. If you want the biggest, easiest fix right away, don't you go that direction?
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's not.
Well, and she continues to close prisons.
Oh yeah,
And there's about so I get notified every time someone is released from prison onto parole and sent to Steuben County.
Okay.
And virtually, I'm going to say 90% of them, their new address is 3 East Pulteney Square, which is DSS.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're coming in without a place to be. They're being afforded housing as homeless. And we all wonder why our homeless numbers are going up.
Skyrocketing.
Well, it seems to correspond pretty good with the number of prisons that are being closed.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is her stated goal behind all these prison closures?
Well, there's the Sheriff's Association met with, and I can't remember which senator it was, the one that's behind all of the HALT Act and all of those, and straight up said our goal is to have zero incarceration. That's our goal.
That's terrifying.
And we hear you. We understand what you're telling us. When we told them how dangerous these laws are, we hear you. We understand what you're telling us. But our goal is zero incarceration.
How is that even? It's not a goal. I mean,
That's their goal.
well, that's their goal, but my goal is at the lottery. It's not going to happen.
Well, my goal is to keep people safe.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. How can they defend that position, I guess?
Apparently, they have enough constituency to defend it to them.
Isn't that amazing?
But it's shrinking.
Yeah, that's what I think. Even in the city, because you look at, man, if you read the New York Post, that's like Mad Max stuff there.
It
I mean,
is.
it's terrifying.
Yes.
So I can't imagine the residents of New York City are even happy with the direction of public safety. It doesn't seem that they are.
And they're not. And that's why you see Mayor Adams reversing his stance on several items.
Yeah, and if you look at the involuntary commitment, which is interesting that they're having the conversation, but right away, as soon as Governor Hochul even mentioned it, Carl Hasty said there's too much detail there, basically signaling we're not going to look at this.
Yeah.
So everything's dead in the water except for the kind of the fluff, right?
Right. Yeah, the only thing I saw encouraging is a raising of the maximum age to take the test as a police officer.
Oh, yeah.
That was in the budget. That's encouraging. I think there's a lot of folks that are getting out of the military after 20 years at age 38 or 40 that could do another good 10 years
Of course.
in law enforcement.
And are we still struggling with a shortage in general?
We are.
Yeah.
We just had a test, deputies test, 27 people took it
Okay.
for the entire county.
Oh, wow.
And we'll do the PT test this Saturday, which usually cuts that in half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, what did the numbers look like even 10 years ago?
Typically you'd have 75 to 100 people taking the test.
What a big difference.
Yeah.
And corrections officers still
Still low on those. We're starting to make a little headway on that.
Okay.
But we're still significantly short.
All right. We're going to take our first break. And then when we come back, we got some other major issues to get to. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And in the studio, we have the sheriff. All right. So where do we go from here? You want to talk about the county?
Sure.
All right. Why not? Everybody's been waiting patiently. I can't do that. I can't do that to the viewers. Any updates? Obviously, we've been following this for way too long.
Right. I haven't. So here's the troublesome thing for me. Since the decision came down from the Supreme Court Justice, I haven't heard yet from the county anything that would indicate that they have received it.
Okay.
Other than we're evaluating it. But there's been no admission of wrongdoing. And there's been no change in policy regarding executive session.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
because that was pretty crystal clear what they thought about the use of executive session.
I thought the justice did a great job of spelling that out very well. So I haven't seen that yet. And again, I don't know what's going on because it's all still being done in executive session.
Right.
So I do know that I look at the minutes and the agendas of the different committee meetings, and the administrative committee especially seems to bring up things in executive session and vote on them still that are not on the agenda.
That doesn't make any sense.
And it's pretty consistent almost every month. This past month, this month, just 2 weeks ago, they went into executive session without it being on the agenda and voted to sell almost half an acre of village property in the village of Bath to the American Legion, which for $1,200.
Right.
Which I'm all about. Help the Legion out.
Absolutely.
But put it on the agenda.
But why is that even executive session?
Right. That's what troubles me still is I feel like I fear that they haven't learned any lesson or changed direction. And when I hear Kelly talk about let's look forward, let's look out of the windshield,
Yep.
I agree. But before you can move forward, you got to fix the car.
Yeah, you've got to learn your.
The car's got to run.
Right.
It's got to run
That's a great
correctly.
point. Yeah.
Otherwise, you can look forward all you want, but you're not going anywhere. So that's troublesome for me. Is that I don't think they've learned or admitted any wrongdoing yet.
I haven't seen anything admitting
No.
wrongdoing, but if they're still doing executive sessions, then they definitely haven't learned any kind of lesson. But is there
Right.
any repercussions that you know of when it comes to executive sessions, or is it just you got admonished and then they ignore that admonishment?
So the comptroller can come in and do an audit of that
Okay.
and admonish them further.
Okay.
The comptroller actually is in right now doing a 4-year audit of the county finances.
Oh, interesting.
But it's all strictly county finances.
Right. Okay.
So they're going to be there for several months for that, and we'll see what that reveals when they're done. But that's troubling, and I still hear different legislators, and I get reports of different members of the county government making untrue statements publicly about me still. That's very troubling
Yeah.
because at some point in time, there's going to be consequences for
Of
that.
course. Yeah.
And when I've talked to Kelly, and she is trying to bring those folks forward. She
Right.
really is.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that. But when I talk to her, if we're going to move forward,
Right.
let's quit doing the things that got us in this
Yeah.
situation in the first place. And that's making untrue statements about me, making slanderous statements about me to the public. That needs to stop.
Yeah, and I don't understand what the end game is there because they've already, especially last time, and we talked about it a lot on the program, how much taxpaying dollars went to
Yes.
this. You would think, especially with a major local election year this
Yeah.
year, you would think that this would be something they want to steer clear of, not making it worse, not doubling
Correct.
down when it comes to executive sessions.
And I did hear Kelly say that some of my figures weren't correct. She's right. They paid more than what I reported.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, they have spent more than what I reported.
Is that right?
Because in my press release, that was just up until September.
Oh my gosh, that's
So-
right. Yeah.
So there's been more since then.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah. They hired Communication Council, which is a crisis communication company, and it's
should tell you something.
$700 an hour.
Wow. How do I
To
get
help
that job?
them, to help them create their talking points.
I went into the wrong communications field.
You did.
That's where the money's at. So
I'm sure Hesselson's is paying you
they're-
$700 an
They
hour.
are. Thank you, Hesselson's. But that is really interesting to think that when you hire a crisis communication, doesn't mean you technically did anything wrong.
Right.
But it's also, hence the name, kind of
Correct.
a red flag as well.
Yes, Communications Council is the name of the company. They're out of Ohio, and it's over $700 an hour to use them, and they've used them.
Wow.
So,
But where are these talking points being used? Because I haven't heard. There's been no press release.
Remember the video thing?
Oh, that I
Jack
remember.
Wheeler
Yeah,
did?
yeah, I remember that. But
Yeah.
I'm saying since the court case or the Supreme Court decision came down, has there been any? You mentioned you haven't heard anything. I haven't seen any
No.
statement other than we're, like you said, look into it, and there's been nothing else.
Right.
But at what point, like I mentioned so many times, do you stop digging? Right. I mean,
Yeah.
And that's why do you? So does it look as if there's going to be any appeals to this?
I don't know.
Yeah, we just
There's
don't
been
know.
no public discussion of it. There's
Maybe
been
executive session.
There's reportedly been several discussions in executive session about it.
That doesn't seem like a good. I don't understand the executive session, but I know way back during. You remember during the Tea Party days?
Yeah.
That became a very big topic. The open government and
Yes, be transparent.
that's all it takes. Mm-hmm. And if you firmly believe what you did to the sheriff, why back away? Why be quiet about it?
Right.
Why do it in executive session? Be forthcoming with the taxpayers who just spent, as you said, even more than we initially reported.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the county?
No.
Anything
just
else you
moving
can
forward.
say? No.
Well,
Okay.
well, you know, I keep doing my job. Oh, and one of the things that Kelly said was that the county offered to buy me insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd rather do my own policy than take the insurance. I don't even know where that came from, because the original resolution was you buy your own insurance or you won't be able to do your job or get paid.
Yeah. So that's not you wanting to. Yeah, and that's what it all boils down.
It's like the hostage taker saying, "Well, they never said they didn't want to stay with me."
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. But you think of the time and cost and everything that this has had on you, just so you can quote unquote keep your job. But it's not a typical job. The
Right.
voters voted for you.
Correct.
And
Yes.
I know I say this every time you're on the program, but this is what seems to make people, especially in Chemung County, who don't really have a dog in the fight, they see this as, wait a minute, wasn't the sheriff voted on by? So who believes that they know better than the
Independently
voter?
elected.
Yeah, independently
Yes.
elected. It's very much the Trump aspect that we've been talking about, where sometimes, at least last term, there's people behind the scenes that thought they knew better
Right.
than the man that was elected president of the United States. And that's
Correct.
not what we want from, I don't think any president should
Well, and
want that.
I think that's kind of the crux of the matter is I'm not who the legislature wanted
Right.
in this position.
Right.
They wanted probably someone a little more malleable than me, probably someone a little less principled than me.
Sure.
And the people of Steuben County had different ideas.
Yeah. And that's the way elections work.
Who
That's,
they're
I
supposed
guess,
to be representing.
so frustrating. So there's no real timeline on anything else. We're just kind of waiting to see if there's anything. Wow.
Yep. Yep.
I wonder if it's going to be interesting to see the fire, if this lit the fire under anybody come election season. You're probably watching closer than anybody.
I think you'll see some people run and
Yeah.
primary some of these legislators.
I do too. But I haven't heard anything. That's just me speculating because, again, I know I keep saying this. I'll do my public service announcement. But you got to start taking out petitions at the end of next month. I
Yeah.
mean, you only have not even a month to decide as of today.
Correct.
So if you're going to do it, and we have that petition class that I've been promoting, which is coming up at the
That's good because
Steuben
I
County
don't think
Annex.
people realize how strict the rules are on petitions.
Yeah. And it's like I try to tell people, it's not intimidating if you know. Like I know when I first ran, I talked to Joe, I talked to Vicki
Yep.
Olin, because they're the experts, right? And they
Yep.
want you to succeed.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go out in the freezing cold and then have something be
Not
thrown out.
counted, yeah.
Yes. So again, that's February 1st at 9 a.m. at the Steuben County Annex. That's 20 East Morris Street in Bath. I think that's great that they're doing that
Yes.
at the Board of Elections because people should get involved. And this isn't just at the legislative level. It's all this
At
is
the
a very
local
local
level. Yeah, we had, I think it was the town of Lindley a year or 2 years ago. The only elected office that anyone was running for was highway superintendent.
Yeah.
No one was running for judge. No one was running for
that's sad?
clerk. No one was running for town supervisor. No one was, everything was write-in. In Hornby, I think we had a period with no judge. There's been several of our municipalities where judges from other townships had to come over and double up.
Yep. And if you look at even like town boards, and I know town supervisors are up this year, they're begging. Some of these towns are literally begging, please get involved.
Please run.
And it's really not that, I mean, there's quite a bit of time.
It's not that onerous.
Yeah, no. And you, at the end of the day, you feel good. It's like I was telling Joe Semplinsky was on last week, the new assemblyman, and and we were saying, win, lose, or draw, after you get petitions signed, after you run, you still can pat yourself on the back because you did what most people don't do. They want to complain,
right?
But they don't want to take that step.
They don't want to try and fix it.
Exactly. So we'll be promoting that up till February 1st, which is coming up in just a couple days. But make sure, if you want to get involved, get involved. But we got to take a break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. The sheriff's in the studio, the Hesselson studio, that is. All right, we got a lot more to talk about. Hey, we've been talking about some ups and downs, positives, negatives, but I didn't even ask about how Toys for Tots and Coats for Kids went this year.
They went so well.
Yeah.
And we had people, especially with the Toys for Tots, even after we did our event, people would call, hey, I've got a basket load of toys that I want to bring in. And we were still receiving at the office for the next 2 weeks more and more toys that we would then give to Toys for Tots, and they would go to Steuben County Children. So it was awesome. They went very well, and the coats, BOCES was getting coats from us within a week of us getting them, and we'll have the rest of the folks in and get those peeled out.
And of course, Shop with a Cop. How'd that go?
That was huge. There was, oh my gosh, I think almost 60 kids this year at that, and we team up with everybody on that one.
Yeah.
So it's not just us, but it went very, very well, and they made some children, made some Christmases much happier. Yeah.
Why did I start with that? Why didn't I start with the
know.
positive? We always wait too much. I want to read a couple comments here from viewers. That's what I was looking at here. Thank you, Jim. I will be signing up for the boating course. I was unaware I needed to. Has that been kind of common?
It is, because you think, like me, I'm 61, and I have to go take a boater safety course. I've been boating for 50 years.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, you do.
You do. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't get more attention.
And the important part, too, is you can now once you get that boater safety course, if you go in to get your enhanced license from DMV, it's a little anchor that goes on your license, so you don't have to carry the certificate with you on the water.
Oh, that's nice.
It's right on your license.
Right part of your license.
You can do that. You can pay for that.
Like the anchor tattoo I have on my forearm?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Just
from when you were in the Navy.
Yes. Exactly. So when I eat my spinach. Another comment from a different viewer. Many people should show up to the next legislative meeting and voice their concerns and call for all the resignations in regards to the situation with Sheriff Allard. Well, thank you, viewer. We'll leave that out there for others to digest.
Thank you.
Yes, that's very nice of you. One thing, and I've been talking to a mutual friend, and recently we had the breaking story in New Orleans with a car driving through the crowd.
Yep. Yeah.
And that person's point, which is a very good point, we think of like a New Orleans or some big crowd, but we have a lot of big events in our area. So do we think about that at the local level?
We do, and I'll tell you, after the Boston Marathon bombing, we revamped the way we looked at the Wine Glass Marathon.
Oh, yeah.
And at the start and at the finish, we have the portable barricades now, and I work closely with Chief Spalding. She just ordered more barricades after New Orleans, but every year we increase the security and improve the way that we look at the mass gatherings. Our issue for me as the county sheriff is we have so many events such as the Fall Foliage Festival, Festival, tongue twister there.
Yeah.
The county fair, the Dairy Festival, the Hammond Sport Fair, Smoke in the Valley, Smoke on the Water, all of these events that are typically held in conjunction with very small municipal PDs, and they don't have the resources. So we help them as best we can, but we have a long way to go to really get to the point where I feel secure that, because when you talk about a soft target, we are as soft as it gets. And
I read an article that's the days of like September 11th with an airplane, those are gone. Terrorists are now looking at what is relatively very simple for them.
Yeah, just drive into a crowd.
Yeah. And it does seem to happen with pretty too much frequency.
Yes, and again, you can drive into a crowd with a rifle and a IED,
Yeah.
and you're on the news.
Yeah.
And that's what the big push is. So we meet our chiefs, Steuben County chiefs. We meet bi-monthly,
Okay.
and these are the things that we go through. Is hey, these are the resources we have. Let's make sure we pool our resources across, and through the emergency management office, we can get more portable barricades when we need them.
Good.
They have some also. So yeah, I've been looking at this very closely since Boston Marathon bombing, because the Wine Glass is the second biggest marathon in the state of New York, second only to the New York City Marathon.
Right.
So, and it's widely regarded as a must-do because of the beauty of the area and the time of the year, and it's fairly flat.
Yeah.
And it's one of the last qualifiers before Boston. So it gets a lot of national and international attention. One year, Runner's World said it's one of the top 10 in the world that you have to do if you're a runner.
So I'm glad that, because everybody thinks it can't happen here.
Yeah.
And then God forbid if something does happen.
Well, I don't want it to happen.
Exactly. That's And I know, especially you bring up the Wine Glass. I know that you've been very
involved,
focused with across the board on that. And we'll talk about that. We're all thinking, because it's snowing out, I'm just trying to think of the nicer days of the Wine Glass Marathon. And some of the events. We're talking about boating. We're talking about all these nice things, and then you look out in the snow. So in general, how's things at the sheriff's office?
Things are good.
Good.
We still need more correction officers, obviously. We were actually fully staffed for about 2 weeks on the roadside, and we'll continue to chase that dream. But things are well. We just finished the FBI leader training, so we're on path to have every working supervisor through. That's called the FBI trilogy of leadership. It takes a while to get there, but we're on path to have all of our supervisors with a 3-tiered FBI leadership training under their belt to move forward. I'm very excited about that.
Well, I know I've not joked with you, but talked about the newsletter in the past, and it's very impressive how much you were able to accomplish in the office monthly.
Yes.
I mean, you've got to be busy.
It's very busy, but again, busy hands are happy hands.
Yes.
So so I have a few thoughts that you only gain professionalism through training, and training and leadership. So professionalism is one of our core values. So we continue to train and make sure that we get the resources to our folks that are going to help them excel.
And how's the morale been? Because we talked about it with the county. I don't want to get back to the county issue, but I think it's important to note, because when you have a lack of people or you're looking for more people, how is the overall morale?
Morale's great right now.
Oh, good.
The deputies just got a really good contract, and they got 20-year retirement, which they were one of the few agencies that didn't have it. And they're doing well with that. And we've been able to recruit in phenomenal people. And I'm very excited about that. And it brings our level collectively up.
Yeah, of course.
And it allows us to provide better service. And, you're always going to, it's law enforcement. There's always going to be times where you do things that are uncomfortable and unpopular, but you have to do them.
You have to do it.
And I think our folks understand that and are doing a phenomenal job of moving forward through all the diverse issues that we face.
Of course. And is the changes being made, the 20-year retirement, is that because it's been so difficult to find people to do the job?
It's a monetary issue.
Yeah. Okay.
It costs a lot more for that program than it does for the 25-year. We're one of the last counties to switch over for their deputies, and it's entirely a monetary issue. Okay.
Now, in the past, we mentioned a little bit earlier on, defund the police and some of the things we've had to deal with in Albany. When you look at the incoming term, the new president, is it nice to at least overall see what seemed to be a very pro-police mentality? Because that's been a little bit different from years past.
Right. Yeah. So we at the conference that I was just at, state conference, we had the DEA and the Border Patrol. They were both presented, and they were like ecstatic over the changes because now they can do their jobs without their hands tied.
Border Patrol specifically.
Yeah, they felt like for the last 4 years their hands were tied, and now they can do their job the way it should be done. Wow. And they were very excited. I'm excited to see. I think we're heading into a time where we've always had police support in this area, and it's always been phenomenal. But I think everybody's starting to wake up to the fact that all of these failed social programs of the last 4, and in our case, the last 8 to 12 years, have come back to do nothing but make them less safe. And when you look at, like, if you remember when we had to do police reform in 2019, that was everybody but state agencies. And when we've had to do the Principal Policing Act with mandatory reporting to the Attorney General's office, that was everyone but state agencies. And now what you're seeing is most of the issues of abuse or ethical issues that we're seeing in the media are not local.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So if the state is running the boat on those, which they are, what's that tell you?
Now, I know this is kind of going full circle, though. Do you think, because we see the change at the national level, the inroads that you mentioned that Trump made here in New York State, what do you think the 2026 election looks like? Not to get that far ahead, but with Hochul, because Hochul she can say that she's for public safety, but nothing in her record shows it.
No. And she's caught between a rock and a hard place because she's not liberal enough for her own party.
Isn't it amazing?
And she's not Republican enough for the rest of the state.
And she's not willing to fight. Like Cuomo, for better or worse, he didn't care about burning bridges.
He loved to fight.
Yeah. She doesn't want that fight. And so when Carl Hastie signals that they're not going to look at that, it's over.
Right.
Because she doesn't have that fight in her. That's why nothing came up about bail reform in the state of the budget when she's talking about public safety.
Right. And again, we're still the only state that our judges can't assess public safety to do bail. We're the only state.
It makes no sense.
And we're the highest tax state. Again, we wear that crown.
Yeah. And I know I've asked you this in the past, and this time maybe it was a little bit better, but do you get nervous in the sheriff's office when it's time for the budget?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially not as much right now as it was under Cuomo.
Yeah.
Under Governor Cuomo, it was like, what's coming? Yeah. What do we got to get ready for?
Yeah. You never
because that's where all of the most disastrous decisions were made. Bail reform specifically, but the HALT Act and the Clean Slate Act, which is under Hochul.
Yeah.
And all of those, and they're still trying to figure out how they're going to do that.
Yeah.
We had a meeting with the Office of Court Administration on that because we can't seal without an order from a court.
Yeah.
Yet all of these records are supposed to be sealed.
Yeah.
And the courts are going, how do we do this?
Why do we do that in New York State? Not to get on a tangent here, but we did it with
everything backwards.
Yeah, we did it with marijuana. Right? It's a wild, wild west. It still is. But now they're trying to tout the numbers as if it's a big tax boom. Think of how much time and effort and money's been wasted on the way they did it. And all
Raise
it takes
the age was a perfect example.
Yeah, take a breather and think this through.
Our last 3 juveniles that had to go to a security detention, we had to take them to Nassau County.
Wow.
Because there's no beds upstate.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
And we're 5 years in.
It makes... Yeah, I don't understand the knee-jerk. Well, it's got to be with her. She wants to do the kind of virtue signaling and beat California to the punch, must be.
Yeah.
Which is not where you want to be.
No.
I mean.
No.
But like you said, at least at the national level, we know we have more of a pro-police. And I do think there are some, like Richie Torres. Do I believe he's changed his opinion? No. But at least
Leopard hasn't changed his
exactly.
spots,
but at least you can see people realizing and waking up to the idea that voters want public safety.
They do. Well, people want to feel safe in their own.
My goodness, right? And when all these issues are even affecting us upstate in rural areas, it goes to show there's a larger problem overall in the state.
Remember this time last year when they had the squatter laws in New York City, and people upstate were going bananas because could this come here? Because that's the track.
Yeah.
Whatever's in New York City
gets
pushed to the rest of us. When they look at corrections, they think Rikers Island is the only jail in the state.
I know.
And they make all their decisions based on Rikers.
No. Well, like you said, at least at the national level, I guess. And I do think 2026 should be interesting because I don't even know if Hochul makes it past the primary. Because if Richie Torres does enough to dupe people into believing that he's more public safety, and let me tell you, that article that I read in the New York Post, I'm sure a lot of people could be duped by it.
Unfortunately.
But that's got to be kind of good for Republicans in the long run, only because then you've got the kind of bloody up during a primary and then 2 fresh-faced candidates as compared to Hochul.
Yeah.
Wishful thinking.
It'll be interesting to see. I hope that again, I'm going to be shamelessly Republican here, but
Yeah.
I hope that we find
good
a candidate that's a rock star and that starts pointing out because Governor Hochul has a press release every day.
Yes.
And we need a candidate that's going to look at each one of those and go, this will never work and this is why.
Yeah.
And or this would be a better way to do it and this is why.
And can we also not wait till the last minute?
I know.
It's so frustrating every time.
It is. It's very frustrating.
Because we'll say, most of the time we're kind of stuck with somebody, not always, but that doesn't have the name recognition. So now you got to get the name recognition, raise the money, all that in a very quick amount of time.
And you've got to get the media notice because that's the other thing we trouble with, or stumble with is our candidate doesn't get the media coverage.
No. They never do. I mean, and a lot of it is because I think the mainstream media can ignore that candidate because no one knows who that candidate is.
And that candidate's
they
got to camp out on the steps of the governor's mansion.
I know. I know. Well, we are out of time. Thanks for giving me so much time this morning, Sheriff.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime.
We'll
you know
do it again
that.
soon?
Yes.
All right.
Whenever.
Join us every weekday morning at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early.